Hello, good evening. So it's 7:02. We can go ahead and start. I hope you've had a lovely week and the course is taking you guys well. So welcome to another job mentorship session, and my name is Hope, and it's a pleasure to be here. So I hope I'm audible. Just one person? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. So like I was saying, my name is Hope Nasirian. Welcome to this week's session on job mentorship. So our topic today is something we've all had when you're in the IT sector, when you're in the cybersecurity sector. So it's career transition and flexibility in cybersecurity. So this is something we've all come across when you speak to people in this field. You'll hear that maybe they started as an IT support, maybe they started as a data analyst, maybe they stumbled into IT coincidentally. So it's a large field, and the term cybersecurity is so wide. So I was thinking of, like, when we were doing our interviews, the common questions all of us were asked were, what are your career goals and how does Cybersecurity help you reach these goals? So most of the time you'd hear, like those I interviewed, I'd hear, I want to be a SOC analyst, I want to be a cloud network security expert, I want to be a cloud engineer. We all had an idea of what we wanted from this course, an end goal from it. So what happens when the first job you get or the internship you get doesn't match exactly what your career goal was? Or you enter into the field you wanted and realize, there are other opportunities somewhere else, or I can add this to what I wanted. So the thing is, you need to be flexible, but that is obviously easier said than done. So today we are joined by someone who's traversed this sector, the cybersecurity field. He's been able to change with the times. He's been able to be flexible. He's been able to take up new projects and new positions. So I'll just take this moment to invite our speaker today. Okay, so our speaker is Mr. Mark Smith Karige, and he's an assistant manager information security at Gulf African Bank. So Mark, welcome so much to the Cybersecurity mentorship session, and we are happy to have you. The session is to connect the students or the trainees to industry experts and let them have a feel of what the industry entails and what practically, what works practically just outside the books and outside what we learn in class. So Mark, welcome to the session. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Hope. Kindly confirm if I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so as introduced, my name is Mark Smith Karige. So I'm currently the Information Security Assistant Manager at Gulf African Bank. So I would like to take you through possibly the transitions that I have gone through to at least try to show you that it's actually possible for someone to switch jobs and eventually get to cybersecurity. So from an early age, I really wanted to get into cybersecurity. By that time, all I knew was about that they are hackers. I wanted to become a hacker. So that's all I knew that I could start with. So I remember when I was younger in high school, some of the things that I tried to do was a lot of research. By then, internet wasn't as free. You weren't able to get a lot of resources online. So what I primarily tried to start off was on the Yahoo groups, trying to interact with people, But now the disadvantage for that is that there were a lot of scam artists if you try to seek for mentorship online. So guys are going to try to really scam you, so you have to really watch out for that. So leaving high school, I had a dream to somehow take myself to university. So the first position that I did was I was a computer trainer in a small college in town. So that was before there was a crackdown on the trainers that were actually offering courses. So it's primarily only training on the computer packages, while at the same time, still since the college itself was still offering other courses that were related to IT, I was actually taking my free time and trying to learn more skills. So that's how I actually got into doing a lot of hardware and a little bit of the networking, primarily from a hardware level. So after that, I joined university. I did my degree in computer information systems at Kenya Methodist. So one of the things that I realized, especially when you're in a private university, you really have a lot of free time. So if you imagine that you can get, maybe you are doing only 12 hours of learning, 12 to 18 hours of learning in a single week. So that's how I decided to actually look for a job. But now the challenge that you're actually going to realize is that by that time, no one really wants to hire someone who does not either have education or maybe doesn't have the necessary skills. So the first main job that I actually got from that was in some of the Apple shops that are actually in malls. So my work was primarily to support MacBooks, iPhones, iPads, and all. And now through that, I was actually still doing my university degree on a distance learning mode. So I went on with it for a prolonged duration until I finished my degree and then I graduated. But now the challenge that even started coming in again. Yes, I have done a little bit of certifications, which was only the A plus and the N plus, but now no one is willing, or maybe no one is readily willing to hire me from the experience that I have. So I've already accumulated 3+ years working from the computer shops. Anyone that I meet trying to go for interviews, no one really wants to look at the experience that I gained. So I took a chance with an IT firm. I actually resigned and I took up an internship position. My goal wasn't actually to even get hired in that company, but to just try and prove for maybe 6 months and build my CV for me to proceed now and try to get into a major firm. I was lucky enough from dedication, trying to really learn, trying to do the best in all I could do, at least to get a permanent position in the organization. So I actually ended up spending 6 of my years in that company. Hello? Okay, please mute if you are not speaking. So through that, I actually got in depth into the IT field. So before that, I actually forgot to mention that I had done my CCNA, but one thing that you realize is that there is too many people that have done certifications. Trying to position yourself to get into direct employment by that time was difficult for me as well. So I got into IT support, started slowly from the IT support. I was lucky enough, since the company was offering managed services and also IT support for other organizations, I was able to somehow transition myself to that while still managing the local IT support from that. From that, that was actually my first experience when I started having to configure the firewalls for the organization, trying to put myself to be part of the project teams that are managing other clients for the firewalls and the NACs. From that, I was able to also learn and configure antivirus solutions, those are the centrally managed antivirus solutions. Okay, just a second. Sorry for that. So that was my first job. I was actually able to do a little bit of security. But you see now for that, you are still not going to be classified as a security professional because you are trying to juggle through a lot of IT service management systems. I was also doing telephony at the same time. So it was a complete jumble, but I really did a lot of long hours. It's not that I'm advocating for the long hours from the work-life balance, but if you are able Because you see, if you say that you're going to be at work for 8 hours a day, at what time do you read? Are you going to go home to start trying to learn new skills, or are you going to try and stretch your time? So that's how I actually learned to be stretching my days later on in the office and continuously learning new solutions. So at least I was eligible to be taken for the projects that were actually handling cybersecurity. So after 6 years, I actually transitioned into banking and actually went to SBM Bank was actually now where I actually went to focus on cybersecurity. So in that, so you'll realize that there are many fields when you talk about cybersecurity. So coming from campus, you might be thinking that all you want to do is become an ethical hacker. But you see, from that is only one angle that you are currently looking at. Remember, for that, for you to really progress as a penetration tester, you need to somehow be aligned or at least work in an organization that is performing a lot of audit requests for the clients, at least for you to build up your proficiency in the penetration hacking side of it. So as I mentioned, I also did networking, that was CCNA routing and switching. So I had at least built a baseline for myself, on at least on the network security side, because that is also another major aspect that you can consider. Just because you have done a SOC Analyst course and then you maybe get into networking, you can still be employed in a bigger organization, primarily focused on networks and also network security. So as has been mentioned, you can also go into cloud security. I know that's a really growing field. The only question that I can ask is, or maybe that might be a challenge for you, is how will you really be taken up by a firm that is maybe looking out for skilled professionals? So an easier approach can be network security, because you find a lot of companies doing networking. So if you work in a company that is doing a lot of networking, you can try to somehow certify and try to align yourself to the network security arm of it. So for me, primarily, I was actually very strong in the infrastructure support, because I ended up becoming a systems administrator, although yeah, technically it was a systems engineer where you had to really figure out to deploy new solutions, both cybersecurity and on the infrastructure side. That is another avenue that you can try to look at. If you say that you start from the IT support, if you're able to transition yourself into infrastructure support and you also start handling firewalls, start managing EDR tools, you start managing the WAF appliances, that's another angle that you can try to push to get into the cybersecurity space. Another side that you can try considering is maybe for the people that might be going into the audit. I know audit is not directly seemingly like cybersecurity, but you will realize that a lot of audit firms are going to somehow align themselves to cybersecurity. So whether you're going to be a penetration tester or purely are going to be an IT security auditor. Okay, so those are the branches that I found. So I'm primarily stronger in the infrastructure side. That is actually what helped me really get deep into the information security field. Because remember that now the organizations need to deploy secure images, they need a technical person. It don't have to be all you know is maybe purely networks, because that might cut out from some of the opportunities that you get. If you're also stronger in the server administration and also the firewalls and antiviruses, really knowing how to troubleshoot issues will pay off in the long run. So in my current position, after my other transition, I'm actually currently getting into data protection. That's really a growing field, but the only challenge is that there may not be as many data protection officer jobs immediately. I know the field is really growing, so you're going to get some big organizations hiring for data protection analysts. That's a side that you can try going through. So you don't have to be completely technical or maybe completely hands-on if you go into the data protection arm of it. So apart from that, in cybersecurity, you might also get to land into an organization that is primarily focused on business continuity. So all that is without maybe trying to consider security operations, which is where the bulk of the security guys are going to get in through from even the training that you have received as a SOC analyst. So that is my career path, and everything in a nutshell.
Hello. Thank you, Mark, for that. So just before we invite questions, kindly would you take us through like what was job searching like when you started in your career, even when now once you transitioned to the whatever from teaching outside and coming back into the industry. So what was job searching like when you're starting simply, and what would you have done differently? And also touch on opportunities that are there now that weren't there when you were starting off.
So job searching was extremely difficult, as everyone can relate. Main reason being is that you find not all organizations are going to want to hire an entry level person to fill in the gaps that they have internally. So that actually really locked me out of a lot of opportunities from that. But then from the various things that I actually attempted having to do, it actually eventually builds up to your CV. Like as an example, for information security teams, you have to really be proficient in training and awareness level, not really because they're supposed to join the security operations arm of it. So in an example that at least somehow pushes my CV at the top, at least having been a trainer some point in my life, having interacted with multiple devices. So you find that, the organizations that I have worked, they were really strong in mobile device management. So since at least I had also extra experience in managing Mac and iOS devices, that somehow helped because that was also a pain point. So in a way, it may not be the best of ideas to really diversify completely instead of specializing. But for me, I've realized that especially on a technical front, if you try to position yourself from a technical front, even if you're not directly working in cybersecurity, having the multiple layers of knowledge and experience that you'll have gained will eventually help you. So some of the things that I found that I didn't really do well when I was coming up, certifications. Okay, eventually in your life, you'll realize for you to really go higher and maybe for you to switch positions, for you to go into other organizations, you'll realize that the first level that you have to pass through is the HR level. So for the HR level, they already floated out a job offer, a job opening. They're going to say that they want these and these skills, and they also want, as an example, some basic certifications that they're trying to look at for someone who is going to join the position. So remember that the first line is going to be HR, who is going to have to sift through the hundreds of CVs. So if you're at least having multiple certifications, like for what you're doing in Cybersecurity and any other certification that might be relevant to the field of the organization that you're trying to target, that might help you. I really had a lot of knowledge because I really did a lot of on-the-job learning, even to get to extra projects. But what I did not do well was that I really never went for certifications directly. So you find that at times it becomes difficult for you to get in through the door to actually get invited for the interview. As much as once at least you get to the interview room, that's when you're brought now the security teams, the IT teams that are supposed to grill you on your expertise, that's where I realize that you can actually shine from all the knowledge and experiences that you have. So certifications generally are advisable. If maybe you're not looking to break the bank, what you can possibly focus, maybe there's a small certifications, try to consider also general IT certifications, because some organizations might hire you for governance aspect. Governance is simply just trying to look over whatever the IT teams are doing, while some organizations might want you to be hands-on technical on the security front, which means that they need someone who is going to manage all their security servers instead of the editing managing for them. If you're going to be troubleshooting DAM appliance, they don't want to have someone who only knows they can configure the DAM, but they don't even know how databases work. So building the skills and also trying as much as possible to certify for them, that will really go a long way. An item to add there, hope as well, will be while you are creating your CVs, you have to really try and focus on what you are stronger in. So assuming that you are going to be doing these certifications, you have really no experience that you're going to be having, trying to start your CV by writing experiences might make the person that needs to review hundreds of CVs never really get down to the certifications that you have done. If you have skills more than certifications, you can choose to start with the skill areas because something might catch their eye from that point. If you're also stronger in the certifications aspect of it, you can consider that being towards the top of the CV, and then the experiences towards the lower part of the CV.
Thanks for that one. So the last part of my question was, are there opportunities that you can see clearly right now for people who are starting that weren't really there when you were starting?
So the first part I can say on the cloud security, it's a really new field. Although I believe for that one, it may require someone to also get onto the IT side of cloud first of all. So at least if you are stronger, if you get a job, maybe the company that really is strong on cloud, even if you can't get that job directly to go into cloud security, you having that base and experience from cloud support is really going to help you directly on that. Another job that I can see that is really coming up is the SOC analyst positions. That's one of the, I can say, the easiest ways to actually get really into and focus purely on cybersecurity and IT security side of it. Reason that I can say that is that by the time I was in my, what to say, third, where I actually spent that position. So we were actually doing SIMs, but back then you'll realize that the only reason that companies, which were primarily only banks, were maybe buying a SIM solution was purely to as a requirement by the Central Bank of Kenya regulations. So you find that the regulations have come in, have told them that you have to deploy a SIM solution, whether it works or not, as long as they deployed, they were actually proceeding to deploy on that. So back then you will realize that most of the security was actually done by the networks team, which is why people that also got into networks by that time eventually were able to somehow transition into cyber security. So from the SOC analyst part of it, that I can say is might be one of the most growing positions. We have multiple companies these days that are attempting to set up base in Kenya, or even some like Siriano already established. And you see what they actually do is that they're attempting to get multiple clients that might want their managed security services. So for you to maybe to work for a company such as they mentioned data for the managed security services team, you see they might require you to be really hands-on on a networking level. You understand firewalls because that is possibly where they are really focused on, as compared to going to a company that primarily is managing SOCs as a whole. So SOCs can be one of the ways that they're actually really going up. And the more the security landscape also continues increasing and the maturity of the organization in terms of cybersecurity, once a small organization receives the proper budgets, you actually realize that they're going to move away from the managed SOC aspect of it. And so they're going to have to hire internally all those positions to actually have an in-house SOC.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. So it's an open forum for questions. We'll start with Gigi Kariruki. Just unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening. What is a SOC analyst solution?
So not a SOC analyst solution. So I think what I was trying to refer is that, okay, SOC analyst will basically be a position whereby someone needs to possibly sit in front of a SIM solution that is already aggregating all the logs that they're going to be receiving. Then they have to know how to interpret all the events or the incidents that are going to be flagged by the solution. So that one comes easier as an entry level because the person just simply needs to know how to understand the information that they're receiving as compared to going further than that, where the person needs to also know how to configure the SIEM solution, do threat hunting, incident response, and also maintaining the solution.
Was your question answered, Gigi?
A little bit.
Okay.
So, is it a career path or a role?
That is a career path, because you see, SOC analyst is one of the entry level positions that you can possibly get for information security. Because also being a SOC analyst, you don't even have to really know a lot about penetration testing. You may not really be required to know in depth about how to configure firewalls, how to configure DAM solutions, because you find that someone in a higher position than you will most likely be the one that is configuring those solutions. They send those logs to the SIEM solution that is going to be aggregating all logs. Then now your work might be now to monitor that solution, and then you try to raise any alarms that you can actually see.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next we'll have George. George, then Kennedy.
Okay, thank you. So I think you had touched on this area that I'm going to ask, but just some clarification. Must you have certification for you to get your first job in security? And if it is a must, what are the types of certifications, examples of the certifications that one could need for you to be able to get your first job in security? Thank you.
Okay, I really wish there was an easy way to answer that one about the best way to actually get into cybersecurity, because I think some of us will have taken that option. So certifications can help. The drawback for certifications, assuming that you do your CCNA certification right now, you can't do it. It might help you get into an organization from your CCNA, but then remember that it's also going to be expiring in 2 years. Is that an investment that you are willing to make to actually say that let me take all this time to try and certify? Because most of the organizations that try might be trying to push for jobs that might require a bit of knowledge on the CCNA side of it. You can possibly look at an angle of trying to get cheaper certifications. So if you have an already established platform, I think for you, it's maybe it will be from the Cybersecurity. Which certification are you currently doing in Cybersecurity?
The SOC analyst.
The SOC analyst. So you see, on one angle, if you have this training that you have already received and have already been certified as a SOC analyst by the Cybersecurity team, if you are compared between you and someone else who is purely directly from the university, who is still trying to get into the same position as a SOC analyst as you're also trying to do, you will stand higher chances, because the other guy means that we'll have to somehow start training them from the first. What is a SIEM? What is an event? What is going to be an incident if you see it? How don't necessarily need to know all SIEMs in the world. I also don't really know a lot of SIEMs, but knowing how to actually use and what you need to watch out for and how to operationalize it, that will be the other angle. So if assuming that you're not really getting a lot of opportunities to get directly from your first jobs to jump directly into cybersecurity, you can also look at the angle whereby if you have been hired in a networking company, try to do the basic CCNA routing and switching, jump also to CCNA security as you try to position yourself for your next employer. If you are going to be in a company that you're primarily going to be doing IT support, I think ITL previously did not require any renewals or any repayment for the renewals. So it used to be a good certification that you can just have at the back of your pocket. So those are some that you can try to do. If you have offers on Udemy, I mean, they are not bad to have for your skills, but don't say that you are doing 100 certifications, but you can't really back them up with some bit of experience. So you can do a couple that you feel that's the side that you're going to go to. Because as we said, you can either go through the infra side of it, or you can go through the network side of it, or you can also go directly from the SOC level. And does that answer it?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and also let me just contribute to that. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Yeah, so this is Chenge Neville, the security analyst instructor at Cybersecurity. So I'll just like to add on that question of certification, because that question usually pop up countless times. Guys trying to figure out what certification they're required to do. I think another response that I can add to it is that make sure you can be able to equip yourself with a particular skill. Focus on what skills do you require. If you're going to a security analyst path, try to understand what are the skills that are required, because mostly we figure out, we think of having a certification as a perfect, or rather having that certification is already a key to a given position or a role. But you will realize that in nowadays, most organizations will take you through more than even one interview. We are going to test on how much have you been able to absorb, how much skill do you have, and that one will be able to differentiate you from any other person, because you can come maybe 5 of you or 10 of you, or basically everyone who shows up to the interview, they have certifications. Like you can come 20, 50, we are doing interviews and you all have that certification, but we need one person, we need two person. What's going to distinguish you? In as much as you're doing certification, don't do it for the sake of doing, don't pass exam for the sake of passing exam. Make sure you learn the skills. So understand the skills to a specific part. I thank Mark to what you have been mentioning. It's a wider scope, even just in a security analyst track. There is a lot that maybe you will need to have, in as much as maybe you guys have captured the security analyst role. But if you come into the interview and I realize that you also have a bit of infra skills, you can do most of the forensic stuff, then that distinguishes you from someone else. And that means you will be at the upper hand compared to someone else. So focus on building your skills. These certifications, don't do them for the sake of having a heart, like you can tell someone I have this certification. No, do them for the purpose of gaining skill, and skill will be able to expose you. People will know you for your skills. That one will already open so many doors for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Neville.
Thank you. I think, George, that one has been thoroughly answered. So we'll go on to Kennedy. Hello, Kennedy. I see your mic is unmuted, but we can't hear you. Hello. So I think Kennedy has mic issues.
Hello, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so now, sorry for that. I wanted to ask Mark just a quick one. Mark, would you mind explaining to us maybe a little bit of the challenges you encountered while you were job hunting for maybe a cybersecurity role, the role you have mentioned about? What was the roadmap in between that, your mental state and other things, maybe on the other aspect of life that we should know maybe, or would prepare of maybe psychologically? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kennedy. So one main thing that you may realize, if you sit right now and then you realize that you're trying to apply continuously for your cybersecurity job, but then you're not really getting, as much as you go for the interviews, maybe you're not getting hired immediately from that. you still need to know how you're going to pay your bills. If you're going to pay your bills because you're going to get an IT support role in an organization, you should actually consider doing that. Because when if you go to that IT support organization that you're going to be having, you're going to start learning the skills for trying to do some troubleshooting. You're also going to maybe learn skills for maybe managing their antivirus solutions, or even if it's their firewalls. So just because you cannot get it immediately as the first job, you should not really say that you're going to sit and wait until the time that you're eventually going to get that first job directly into cybersecurity. You can always switch from that directly, because when you now apply later on with a small job that you are maybe going to have gotten for IT support, the skills that you're going to go explain in your interview will still hold you better than someone else with the same number of certifications, but trying to really compete for the same positions in the same job. So it is difficult, that one I cannot lie. There is not really a sure win that I can tell you that you can use to try to get into cybersecurity. If your primary focus is to go that path, you can possibly try to really look at the managed security services firms that are currently there in Kenya. For a fact, all internet service providers actually have an arm where they're providing managed security services. So you can possibly also try to find a way to also start applying for the jobs that they're going to be having. If maybe you can try doing an internship for them, if you are lucky enough, you might possibly get a job there, but it's not really something that I can tell you outrightly do this and you're going to get in. If you're on the penetration aspect of even the penetration testing side of it, you can possibly try to look for the audit firms. By audit firms, I don't mean that you only focus purely on the big four, which is KPMG, PwC, and all, because those ones might want to maybe hire directly from the grades that you're getting from the university. You can try to focus on the smaller audit and penetration testing firms that we have in the country. Your first pay will not be great, but the experience that you're going to get from that might be bigger than someone else who didn't get that.
Kennedy, was that answered? Hello.
You are muted, Kennedy.
Okay. Okay. So we'll just go ahead to.
Even trying to get a job in a company that sells firewalls can still propel you to that side, because you're going to be selling those firewalls where you're still going to have to do those deployments. So that skill that you're going to learn from those deployments, for you to get into cybersecurity, your title doesn't actually have to be IT security for you to get into the next job for IT security. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Kennedy, I hope that was answered. Your mic is unmuted, but we can't hear you. Okay, I'll go ahead to Kennedy. You could always just text on the chat or the Q&A section. So I'll go ahead to Martin Mutwiri. And then I had seen Valentine. So Valentine, if you're still in the meeting, you can go after Martin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, in the field of cybersecurity, we have different categories like the SOC analyst, the risk analysis, we have the incident response. Now, in the market or that in the industry, which fields have more demand than the rest, or which field can we navigate easily and secure some cybersecurity jobs? Like which field can we really sit really marketable for in the year as per now, or really in demand?
So generally, they will all be in demand. The only question will be the organization that is looking for a certain skill, because you realize that if you focus on the forensic arm of it, and let's say that you're just setting up in your cybersecurity journey, so you might be better placed if you can try to position yourself to the companies that are providing some services for managed security or for forensic services. Becoming an incident responder, for that you really need to have a lot of in-depth knowledge about how solutions are going to be working. Whether it's going to be a server was compromised, what are the things that you need to check out for that server? How did that traffic come into the organization? Was it through the firewall? Is there an IT administrator maybe that allowed an extra port to come in? Did they create any new rules? So you will realize that okay, from my perspective, not generally for what is outside there, it might be a bit difficult for you to say that your first job was purely as an incident responder directly from university. That's unless an organization is hiring, not really an organization, an outsourced organization is hiring specifically for that to train their people. So saying that you are focused purely on incident response, that may not be as easy as it sounds. SOC is going to be easier. Network security will also be easier because for network security, you see, you might start from the network side of it. So you're supporting networks, and you did a couple of certifications, started doing firewall configurations, that outrightly already in network security. Now from there, you start trying to build up on infrastructure security or infrastructure configurations. The risk aspect of it, that I believe that is also an advanced level, in the sense that you will find that they may not hire you directly as a risk analyst unless they are willing to train you from zero up to the point that you are going to be. You might realize that they might possibly hire someone who has even 6 months of knowledge, at least even in SOCs, to maybe go to the risk side of it, or even to go to the incident response side of it. Because when the SOC analyst raises an issue, they will be escalating that issue to someone in their chain of command. The person that is in their chain of command might possibly be the one that is also handling the incident response aspect of it. So that's what I believe is somehow the hierarchy when you try to consider the options that you have provided.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mark. Just to add on Martin's question, would you say it's possible to get like entry level in the banking industry as part of the security team?
Yes, it is very possible, especially for, I can say even mostly for the bigger banks. Because you see, for the smaller banks, you will realize that they're going to be having very lean security teams. So by the time that they're going to be hiring, unless it's because of the budget that they're having, they may want someone who has a little bit of experience. But now if you check on the bigger banks, the tier 1, tier 2 bigger banks, you will realize that they have multiple positions to fill. They have the time and the bandwidth to actually start training someone who doesn't have direct experience in cybersecurity. Also remember that because cybersecurity is really growing, don't focus purely on banks. Insurance firms, the big insurance firms are also trying to build up their security operations aspects of it. So security operations is where you will find the SOC analyst coming in, the network security guy coming in, because you might realize that unless they have a bigger team, the server security might possibly be handled by ICT.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So next we have Mungai. Just before I let Mungai ask his question, I'd like also to encourage the ladies to ask your questions. This is as much your forum as it is for the guys. Okay, Mungai, you can go ahead.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, my question was more of a general question. So I once was in an interview, and I was asked like, in your situation, where can you use creativity? So I wanted to pass the same question to Mark, like in cybersecurity, where can you use creativity to handle a situation?
I mean, I'm lucky enough that that question has never been brought to me, because I think I'll have to try and cook the response to it. So they want to possibly see how you might possibly think out of the box, and maybe they ask about your creativity. What was the job role that you are applying for?
No, it was around networking.
It was around networking. So if it was
Yeah.
around networking, possibly they might try to understand from you, how will you approach the issues that you're going to be facing? Are you able to maybe, for, you can say that, okay, it's been some time since I did my networking, but for you to pass traffic through multiple locations, are you able to maybe come up with different ways and maybe justify how you're able to do those configurations and why you might want to do that? From a cybersecurity aspect of it, that maybe will be covered under threat hunting. Because when you focus on threat hunting, yes, you're going to be taught how to become a SOC analyst. You will know how to look out for incidents that have already happened in the network. Maybe it's an alert that you have received, but how you're able to eventually investigate that alert. The creativity might be, are you able to maybe think out of the box? Yes, you have something that maybe has just been flagged by an antivirus solution on a certain machine. Creativity will be trying to maybe do some bit of threat hunting and trying to ask the direct question of, just because it has already been flagged there, whether or not it has been quarantined or not, even if it has already been quarantined, but how did it actually get there? Was it because it came in through a USB port? Do you need to check on the USB ports to make sure that they are blocked? Is this that maybe it came through some, maybe they were using a Skype application, maybe they were downloading files from the internet? Are you able to correlate that and try to check backwards as much as you have the eventual incident, how it maybe came in to be on that specific place? That's maybe how you can try answering that for the creativity. For networks, I know you guys have done OSPF and different routing topologies, right?
Yes, we have.
So maybe what you can possibly trying to explain to them, just because you are expected to configure maybe a device or to configure some certain routine in a certain way, if you're able to show that you can think out of the box and try to tell them why you can choose to use this mode of routing as compared to the other one, that might possibly put you in a better position. But yes, that part for creativity, that was to throw you off, because there's no direct answer that you can say. You have, networks are always going to be the same type of networks. You don't have to recreate the wheel. So it's possibly to throw you off, to try and see how are you able to try and explain yourself from that. So yes, you will also get interviewers who are going to try and throw you off completely as they ask you the questions. Doesn't make sense. Try not to just keep quiet. Try to answer it in how you can understand and explain it. If I may ask, how did you respond to that question?
Okay, I just I stated to them that in terms of establishing networks, setting up the network, especially in areas with poor network connectivity, it requires creativity in more of installation.
Okay, so maybe if you can try to tell them, maybe with specifics, maybe you can try to tell them that, assuming that you can't get a direct fiber connection, are you able to use microwaves from the ISP to at least hit you, or maybe there are satellite dishes? Are you going to tell them that maybe you have a separate connection from a different service provider, but then connect via an IPsec VPN tunnel to the nearest place for it to come via fiber? That's how maybe you can try to add specifics into it.
Yeah. I guess I mentioned an example where I used the satellite dish to have a proper connection.
Okay, that works. Although try to also tell them the disadvantages of the satellite dishes. They might have been maybe asking about creativity, trying to also cut cost, because maybe no one wants an MPLS link to all their premises. But then if you assume that they don't want an MPLS link, but then it's a place that has a lot of trees, but maybe there's a lot of obstructions, maybe it's a hilly area. So you can tell them as much as you can, try to be creative in doing things in a certain way, but also tell them the drawbacks to what that might actually have. I hope that's okay.
Okay, so we'll go to Jacinta. Jacinta, you can go ahead.
Yes, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Yes, we can.
So my question is, Mark, what kept you focused on the cybersecurity field? For example, when maybe you were job searching and maybe one of your friends is into software development and they have just gotten a job. So what makes you keep focused on cybersecurity and not diverge maybe into software development where maybe you can get a job easily?
Yeah, I keep asking myself that question a lot. Why I didn't get into software development? I mean, software developers are the ones that are really getting post and also really getting very good money. But then you have to, at a point in your life, by the time that you're finishing your degree, saying that you have a degree only without any necessary skill, that is going to be an issue in the sense that you may try to focus on a certain area, but then you didn't do any groundwork for you to get into that area. So for me, in my university life, I was actually working through the whole of it since I actually did distance learning. So I did consider doing development, but now for me, the challenge was that I did not have enough time in the day. So the aspects that I checked on, apart from that, initially I wanted to get into network security. That's why I did my CCNA before I even finished university, even before my graduation. But now the challenge was that I didn't actually even get a job in networking. Actually, even in the company that I eventually went into, I never really did any networking because it was purely IT support, server administration, and project deployment. So, as we've said, try to also look at, don't try to jump onto everything. If today you decide that you're going to get into databases, focus your part on databases, try to align yourself directly to databases, at least for your first interview, be able to at least explain on that. You can't say that you're focused on infrastructure, and infrastructure is even the harder part considering that you will have to start by being an IT support person. So I decided not to do software development purely because I didn't have enough time in the day to actually learn software development, because you need actual skills by the time that you're being employed that you can actually demonstrate to your employer for software development.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jacinta. Your question made me think of being in the supermarket and there's one line moving faster than the others, and you're on your line and you want to hop on the other one because it's moving faster. Most of the time, you end up losing it all. So next we'll have Vashti.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have a question. Now that from the conversation you said for us to get even a job entry job for cybersecurity, we need to have some skills. So maybe after the training, it's not guaranteed for us to get even an internship to start there so as to get the experience. So I was asking if you know of sites whereby we can get free online hands-on training skills.
Okay, maybe not necessarily for the hands-on training skills that you might want. Okay, if you look at the aspect for the penetration testers, you find the penetration testers find it easier because they're at least able to go through the capture the flag challenges, and then they can try to possibly go to a firm that does penetration testing and actually try to also display their profile for what they've been able to currently achieve. So for the cybersecurity aspect of it, at least for you, the skill, I don't know how much you're doing for the cybersecurity analyst course that you guys are currently undertaking. Are you covering SIM? Hope you guys are covering SIM solutions.
Yes, the SOC analyst track, yes, it should be.
Okay, so assuming that you're able to also cover aspects of SIM, you see, for your first job, you do not really have to be 100% proficient, but just being able to explain what you learned and what you are taken through, that can also help you. For most organizations, okay, I think I'm biased because I was focused primarily on the infrastructure side. Having basics of IT support somehow can help you. You don't want for someone to go and ask you a question of how to format a computer where you're trying to get a job for cybersecurity and you can't demonstrate that you know anything even in IT. Because the field is currently growing and getting broader, you also find organizations that the security officer might also be tasked with also supporting some aspects of IT. So you can try to diversify it unless you are primarily focused on a certain arm of information security. If you also have networks, not networking knowledge, if you have your networks for guys that are able to introduce you to organizations, try to also get internships from them, even if you have not completed your university studies. Eventually, that might come to add up for you instead of having to wait for your first internship after you have finished your university.
Okay. Vashti, are you okay with that answer?
Yeah, it is well answered.
Okay, thank you. We have Gitonga next, and then Phil Ken.
Everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, my question goes to the now, like, let's say for instance you are transitioning from a software developer position to a cybersecurity position, but now you find that in software development at times you can decide to be creative and maybe come up with something and maybe it becomes a startup. But when it comes to cybersecurity, now my question is it possible for such an occurrence? Because you find that a lot of things that we are being taught seem like they are a bit complex. And if it's possible, okay, what will be your advice to maybe someone looking to look through such an angle?
Okay, are you very good in programming?
Not very good, but I can program.
Okay, because I think one of the items that I didn't also mention, so you all know about DevOps, where companies and teams are tasked with continuous development of solutions to meet the organizational needs. So something that is also really coming up, especially in the big tech firms. I can say as an example, Safaricom is the aspect of DevSecOps, where you actually realize that in their entry interviews, because for them, the last time I checked, they were also doing tests that someone had to pass through before you got in. You realize that they wanted people that already have skills, not necessarily in depth of cybersecurity, but also from the development aspect of it. Then in the case that you say that you want to start your own things there that you're able to do for software development, at least you're able to write your own custom scripts from scratch. I do not write scripts. So you do not have to be having everything. You can decide to go the aspect of penetration testing and maybe have your own scripts that you try to publish, and hopefully eventually someone might pick up, although it might be a bit difficult. But I will highly advise for you to try and focus on an area, diversifying for how you have been able to diversify to add on to software development and also the cloud security aspect. That is very good. you can try to possibly look for positions such as DevSecOps. I think you can try, just try googling DevSecOps and see. So let me just share my screen. So primarily, this is the biggest firm that I have seen trying to push for DevSecOps. So where you find that someone wants to at least understand a lot of the development aspect of it, or at least do the coding aspect of it, but then still able to do some items such as security. I'm trying to see where these has, can't find it. Let me just try get something else. And also with the advent of internet and how things are actually currently outsourced, you might possibly even get yourself that try to look for these online jobs. As you're also trying to search for jobs, you might maybe even get a job while you're seated in Kenya, whereas you're actually serving people that are actually outside of the country. Let me see that this gives us anything good. That is the same thing. Okay, this one, what they have generally done is the knowledge of the development aspect of it, and then they are able to add on the aspect of monitoring tools. These are primarily SIMs for that. Although it's not very clear on the security aspect of what they will want. So job is this. So this is for Tala. This is a senior position, and this is in Nairobi. I don't know when this is, but you can see, so they might want someone who is able to work a bit in cloud. Maybe this is not going to be a direct requirement for your first job that you're going to be getting, but then you see the others that is coming on, the use of cloud security solutions, maybe for hardening. So as an example, for some of the tasks that I do, you realize that I need to understand some aspects of scripting, so that at least if I'm saying that we're going to be hardening some containers, if you're going to be hardening some servers, I may not need to be a developer, but at least I know what script needs to be run to be able to actually harden that server. By hardening, generally meaning reconfiguring the server. If you have an organization that has 300 servers, and then they need to quickly change some certain configuration across their whole 300 servers, you are actually better placed than me to actually create a script that is actually going to be used possibly via Ansible and try to deploy that configuration across multiple servers. This is purely DevOps. Let me see. Oh, even KCB had one. Let's see what it did. So you can see we want people that are good in secure coding. So as much as it might have been longer than me in the field on the cybersecurity aspect of it, but I'm not going to come and directly start doing code reviews. That one needs to be done by someone who is maybe having a better background than me on the software development aspect of it. So mine, I might possibly give recommendations, but now the team might need someone who is going to do those actual security recommendations. These are just examples for that. I can't really find a lot on this one. But yes, you can possibly try to align yourself based on also what organizations are looking at. But even having a background of software development still helps you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mark. In the interest of time, I'll ask Phil to go next, and then Bruno to be our last question.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes,
I'll-
Mark.
okay.
Sorry?
Sorry, go ahead. I was saying I'll accommodate Abigail as the last question.
Okay,
No
okay,
problem.
okay. Sorry. I'm a software engineer, Mark, and I joined the security because I wanted to have a system security by design. So you being in the banking industry is probably, I would want to know probably how the security team and the developers in your corporate field are working together. That is especially when you're designing the product, because when you work on something probably like the systems you're using, maybe for mobile or anything for the transaction, there's a point where you people are meeting, and when you design that, the security in mind. So how do you guys work together? From what point are you? Is it from a point where you are doing the product ideation up to the end, or how does the two? If somebody is having a security background and is also doing the software thing, without necessarily now switching to the other wing, at what point are you people meeting? Is there access if you're working, maybe not necessarily in the banking, but in any other organization?
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
I'll answer that from a best case scenario. Best case scenario is that information security teams are actually supposed to be informed from the ideation of the solution. I can say that if you were to maybe apply for the big organizations that are doing their in-house developers, and one thing that really gives us headaches, actually even from the cybersecurity front, is where you have someone who can code and can create something which is inherently not even secure. So you realize that you might have better opportunities as well, in the sense that if you're able to bridge and actually just push yourself as a DevSecOps person. So from the information security side of it, we will be there to at least also analyze not infrastructure based on servers, but how the layout for the applications are going to be done, what needs to be integrated to it. Because from the position that I am in, it's not purely just about what API and if it's secure and how it's going to be. We have to focus on the data protection. If you also need to know, you have to know the libraries. We have to check on the libraries that you're going to be using. Are they going to be libraries that are actually still going to be supported? Are they going to be secure libraries that you want to use? So there is a lot that goes, but now for those meetings that you actually realize that they're going to be very high level. But if you are able to position yourself as a developer and a security person at the same time, that means that you are at least able to pitch yourself as someone who can actually create secure applications that don't require a lot of back and forth when the security team starts to come and test your solution.
Yeah, Mark, very just quickly to add on what you've mentioned. Kindly Phil, let me just also jump into this. Apart from now building just a secure application, I always say cybersecurity is a field that cut across everything in technology. Because if you're following a path of being a developer, being in networking, being on anything, cybersecurity will cut across all this. And in this case, apart from just building a secure application, there is also the aspect of now developing the security solutions. In this perspective, for my case, I've been working as a security analyst, and I realized that in most time we do work with our in-house developers, whereby they need to do different solutions. Most like, let me give an example of a SIEM solution. Maybe we are developing our own SIEM solution. We require a developer. For me, I'm an analyst. yes, I'll understand a bit of codes. That's why I'll need to integrate my skills with the skill of a developer. Now, this developer will also need to know how is he gonna design this application in a sense that it's gonna operate really well and be able to fulfill its objective. Because in as much as you can give a proper description to a developer, but if they understand the real objective of that, or rather the intention of that application, it will be even easier for them to develop and contribute in ideas. So apart from just coming up with a secure application, you can also be part of coming up with security solution. Like you can build on different security tools.
Okay, thank you.
Bruno?
Good evening.
Good
Mine
evening.
is also close to the question that has been asked. So I'm coming into cyber security, the security analyst track from a different line, that is project management. And before applying, I had tried to inquire from some people in the IT industry. One of the people was a software engineer, currently a data engineer, but the counsel he was giving was that as a cybersecurity professional, not enough to just be a cybersecurity professional, that you also need to have either software development or software engineering knowledge, so that even as you work towards securing the systems that you'll be working with, you have that background of software engineering or software development. So mine is just to inquire whether this is true, or you can just survive without having to do a software engineering or development program.
So I can say that is partially true. If you are going to, the first part being, if you're going to go work in a SOC, you're primarily going to be like a help desk for any cybersecurity incident that is going to be happening. So working in a SOC, and if you are to grow yourself from a SOC level to proceed to information security, you may not really require a lot of knowledge in software development. Knowing how to look at scripts and how to run them and how to debug them, that is good. That can be enough for a SOC analyst. But for the aspect that you have to know software development, it may not be entirely true, because as you've said, you primarily would need to either also maybe be aligned to the infrastructure side, which is primarily on the server levels and all that. So if you are good in the server levels, at least you're able to work for server configurations, maintaining a security solutions, being able to harden the security solutions. If you consider to go through and have knowledge on networking, that can propel you directly into the side for network security, which is possibly going to expose you to routing and also for firewall configurations and all. Remember that even in network security, you also have layer 2 security, which is primarily done by the networking team, not necessarily by the security team. So knowing both, that can propel you to that side. Even adding towards the cloud security aspect of it, cloud security might also require you to at least have some knowledge about how systems are going to work. Cloud security is very heavy on, not very heavy, it's somehow leaning a lot towards software developers, because there's a lot of automation that comes with the cloud. So either having knowledge of infrastructure or development, that will be a plus to that side. But you don't say that you have done SOC analyst course, so you can do anything in cybersecurity. There will be multiple fields that you're able to go through depending on the skill level that you're going to be having.
Okay, thank you.
Abigail? Abigail, there's a bit of static from your end. We can't hear you. Actually, a lot of static. Hello, Abigail.
Abigail, try changing your microphone.
Me now.
Yes, you can. We heard you and then we lost you, Abigail.
Abigail.
You're muted.
Mhm. Abigail, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
We have an option for chat.
Yes, we do. So you can either use the Q&A or chat. And if that's not possible, because we're about to end the meeting, you can send the question and then we can ask. Or if Mark is fine with it, can she contact you via LinkedIn? Maybe just ask her question.
No problem.
Okay.
Although chat, can WhatsApp you quickly?
Yes. Okay.
Maybe if someone else has a question, you can just take them as we wait for her to send you the message.
Okay. Coincidentally, she was the last question. So any last question as we give Abigail time? Okay, I actually have a question for you, Mark. So being in the industry, what gaps have you identified that you think those coming in can solve or be able to find opportunities in them?
So the one main thing that I've actually come to realize in the industry is the lack of proper technical skills. I mean, someone is going to possibly start their career from the cybersecurity analyst side of it. Maybe they started from a corporate organization where their role was very well defined. So you actually realize that some years down the line, someone maybe knows only a certain aspect. That's why I was saying that I may be leaning heavily on the infrastructure side of it, but even as much as I can say mine was primarily on the infrastructure, but my also side that I also went through minus the software development was at least also a lot on the networking. If you can have people not necessarily as they start, but as they move on, I believe they can have very good chances if you have someone who is able to do server management configurations, someone who understands a bit of networking to be able to know how to manage firewalls, because you do have some people who started from SOC analyst, but maybe never really had to interact with firewalls. So you find that they go to an organization where they're excited to manage those firewalls becomes an issue for them. Software development, I am not focused at all in software development because I was unable to get into it, but at least they need to somehow understand a little bit of scripting, a little bit of, at least if you're given a code or a script that you need to run, are able to at least understand what it's going to do without you having to wait for the errors or for the end result that is going to come in. So having broad knowledge is very good. It's eventually going to help you out later on in life, even if not now.
Okay, thank you. Abigail, are you available now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry for that. My question is on skills. You said that we should gain skills. Like, okay, right now you're being trained. Maybe some of us, okay, like me, don't have skills in cloud and network, but I'm being trained. I have seen that you have an event tomorrow. Will you advise us to go and attend regardless of whether we are just beginners or what would your advice be on that?
Hope I didn't get her clearly. She was talking about penetration testing and hacking.
Yeah, I also didn't get it clearly. Something about getting skills. Abigail, kindly send the question via WhatsApp, and then I'll just forward it.
Is it related to penetration testing and hacking? And the She-Hack event that I think is coming soon.
Yes, I mentioned about the She-Hack event. It's a CTS event. Will you advise one to participate in it regardless of being a beginner, or what will be your advice be?
Is it paid or is it free?
It's free. What you're saying.
Then you generally have nothing to lose if it's free. My consideration will be if you tell me that you are still not good, you do not have the skills and everything, but it's going to be free for you to attend. You can attend it and at least do some networking. You can attend it and at least you might even maybe learn some skills. So I don't really see how you will be losing if you were to attend it at no cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mark, for the session. Thank you for joining this Cyber Shuja mentorship session. Thank you, everyone, for participating. There's a lot that has been touched on. I think majorly what I've got from the session is do your research. Do your research. Be very proactive on how you're searching for these opportunities. When you're doing your job search, when you're searching for skill growth, be very proactive about it. Also, Mark touched about when building your CV, make sure you sell yourself. If it's the skills that sell you, let them be at the beginning of your CV. If it's the, what do we call them? If it's the certifications, let that also show very clearly. So let your CV sell you. Also, in terms of certifications, try to get multiple certifications that you can back up with skills. So not just papers, but something you can back up with skills. Let the certification actually be a credibility of what you've learned. Then also he's touched on a couple of opportunities from the SOC analyst positions to the network and cloud security to DevSecOps, ethical hacking, infrastructure and governance, among many others. So thank you so much, Mark, for that interactive session. Thank you for even going above and beyond and even adding time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so have a good evening, everyone. Thank you for participating. See you next Thursday.